Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. It's mid-September and it's giving me those back to school vibes. It's been exactly 1 year since I did my exchange semester in Canada. Oh! And in this video I would like to share my experience, maybe some tips, best practices, difficulties, so all related to this topic. Without further ado, let's get started. If you decided that you want to go abroad, congratulations! It's usually an amazing opportunity to meet new people, to get to know a new culture, explore new places. You'll get back home like a different person. So briefly about my situation, I'm originally from Ukraine and I did my bachelor's degree in Ukraine as well. Then I moved to Austria as a full-time student to pursue master's degree, and then from an Austrian university I decided to go as an exchange student to Canada. So I did it technically twice, so I assume I know something about the topic. How it all started. Yeah, Austria was not enough. I just wanted to explore new horizons, so to say, and maybe these are American movies, but I always dreamed to go to the US. When I was enrolled in my Austrian university, I explored what kind of partner institutions and stipend scholarships they have. And of course I could go like to another European university. It's pretty simple with Erasmus exchange programs. I decided that I want to go to an English-speaking country to improve my English, obviously. Luckily, I had a lot of choice because there were universities in the US, in Canada, in the UK and in Australia. Why I chose Canada and not the US? The matter is, I started reading about the partner universities and the program with the American university was not that good because exchange students still had to pay a reduced tuition fee. Even if it's called a reduced tuition fee, it's still a lot of money because it's America. And then I explored Canada because in Canada somehow they had like more choice. For example, Brock University, which I actually chose, University of Alberta, some other universities in Quebec, and probably something else in Hamilton, I think. Yeah, so I chose Brock University in Ontario. That is quite close to Niagara Falls. If you happen to be a student from Brock University, an exchange student from Brock University, or a person who wants to study at Brock University, this might be really helpful for you. As with every exchange, it required a lot of preparation in terms of visa application, university application, and motivation letter, finding courses related to my program. My advice would be just really plan ahead because your preparation will probably take some time unless you don't require a visa or you don't have to take a foreign language test. Keep in mind all the deadlines, both in home university and host university. I guess like for me, it took a bit less than a year, maybe like a semester. I did it really bold because I applied only to one university. I guess it's my thing because when I went to Austria I also applied to one university. It's also a good thing to have a plan B, plan C and whatever if your university allows you to apply to a couple of universities. I applied to Brock University and I got in. So my next step was finding a flat, a room, and just some kinds of accommodation. With North America it's pretty simple because usually universities have student towns, I don't know, where you can actually live and study and they have all the facilities. With Brock University it was a bit complicated because they have pretty expensive dwelling there as well as a mandatory meal plan included. So for 4 months of my exchange it would be like 7,000 Canadian dollars or something that I found a bit pricey, to put it mildly. I decided to look for a flat share house, something situated not on campus. I found my room on this website. Just really beware of scam unless you're absolutely sure that you'll get a room, that you have signed the contract, both parties, that it looks legitimate. Just really go for it because it will be less expensive. Otherwise, you might want to consider something on campus. If you live on campus, it's really great because they usually have a lot of events and some stuff to do, so you won't be bored. In comparison to just dwelling somewhere else, unless you have really cool roommates that you can hang out with. In my case, it was also not that easy because my landlord didn't communicate with me much. I came to Toronto at the end of August and I didn't know when I can move in. I was so scared. in the best possible case, just find a landlord who will rent you an apartment and will be a good communicator, or maybe ask other students from your home university who also did an exchange somewhere. Maybe they have like contacts of people, so that you know that you'll actually get a room or an apartment or whatever you're renting. Yeah, like general rules, don't pay in advance unless you have signed the contract. Everyone knows that, but unfortunately there are people who want to take advantage of you because you're a foreign student, because you don't know anything, because you seem to be gullible, something in that direction. Your university program. Here I would advise you to define your priorities. What's the point of going abroad? For you. Meaning for everybody it's gonna be different, but mostly people want to see how different universities work, meet new people, and travel. Traveling was the most important part for me. I chose the courses that were scheduled one after another, if I remember correctly, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and I had like the other days in a row free, which gave me a pretty good opportunity to travel and like manage my time in a way that I can keep up with the courses and see Canada and the US. I met a lot of other international students who took more courses that their home university requires them to. Again, it's up to you. It's like, what are your priorities? But if you take a course, you might not be able to drop it after a certain point without a penalty. So like really familiarize yourself with the guidelines, with the rules. I actually took only 3 courses, but I felt like they were so time consuming. It was considered part-time in Canada and I was like, wow, I can compare to my Austrian university and I haven't ever had such a workload. Another thing, really inform yourself whether you should pay any fees. I didn't have to pay any tuition fees, but I had to pay like some student something around 700 Canadian dollars. If you're going to Brock, you might want to know it, because in Brock University it's mandatory to buy a bus ticket for the whole year. That I found pretty stupid actually, because I didn't need one and I couldn't opt out because it's mandatory. And it's mandatory for the whole year, so even if you're an exchange student just for one semester, you still pay for the ticket for the whole year. Then the food, yeah, I mean like it was fine. In Canada, as probably in the US, they have like really big packages of everything. As for the banking, I didn't go to the bank to make a Canadian credit card or debit card. Before going anywhere, go to your bank and ask if you can seamlessly pay somewhere else. Because in my case, I experienced a lot of difficulties paying by card in California. Only in California. I'm not sure why. Maybe some knowledgeable people can tell me in the comments, but elsewhere it was fine, but in California I had to pay in cash because otherwise it just wouldn't work. As for studying in Canada, you will be in touch with some exchange student coordinators. These are usually really great people, very helpful. So you can ask them any questions and also ask if they have some trips planned. We went to some wine factory or something, and then there was a trip to Niagara Falls. Guys, another thing, I just suddenly started remembering all the tips that I could have said in the video. One thing that I noticed that exchange students do is that they stick in their national groups. For example, Italians with Italians, Germans with Germans. If you can, try to avoid it. Just don't do that. Just go and speak to other people from different cultures, from different universities, from different countries, because you'll have an opportunity to hang out with your national mates in your country. But when you're somewhere overseas, just go and make new acquaintances. You will be tempted to stick with people from your country because you obviously speak the same language, because you have like the same mentality, because it's easier to make friends. But again, not the purpose of going abroad to stick in your national groups. I was pretty lucky though, because as I mentioned earlier, I'm from Ukraine and I didn't find any Ukrainian there. So I was obviously pushed to make other friends from other cultures. And I'm really glad for that, because with some of them we're still in contact until now, and they're really great people. So yeah, do that if you can. For me, this trip was more or less all about traveling. So I basically opened the map of Canada and I was like, okay, I want to go to Toronto, I want to go to Vancouver, I want to go to Montreal, I want to go to Ottawa. If you have a couple of days in a row, free of your studies, you can really easy go elsewhere. You don't have to wait for a semester break. Just briefly, I tried to count how many places I visited, and it was about 13. If you're considering taking a part-time job, I actually had these thoughts myself. Then I decided against it because my coordinator in Austria, she said that usually Canadian courses are very intensive, time-consuming, so you probably won't have time to travel and work and study. And she was right. She was just right. Try to earn money when you're at home and then go to whatever country you're going and have the best time of your life. So as for the travels, I spent about a week in Toronto when I came a bit earlier and was hoping to actually get my room in St. Catharines. Then I went to Niagara Falls, New York, Washington DC, Montreal, Ottawa, Quebec City, Vancouver, San Francisco, Seattle, Los Angeles, Hamilton, and maybe some other places in Canada. I think these were the major places. I realized it only later that I did all of my trips alone. It was solely solo traveling for me, and I actually opened the beauty of it because I just got an opportunity to meet so many wonderful people that I would not have met otherwise. So if you're on your exchange, you want to go somewhere and you think oh, I don't have a companion, or I'm scared of going alone. I mean, you're alone in another country, in a foreign country already, so what else you're losing? Basically nothing. It was the best decision of my life to go to Canada, and I would do it again and again and again. On the downside, there will be days when it's gonna be difficult. You might feel lonely. I think every problem can be sorted out. If you don't like something, if you don't like the course, if you don't like the professor, if you got scammed, you can step over it and just have a great time. Just not allow it to spoil your experience. Another tip from me would be not to buy a return flight or a return ticket unless you're required, for example, by the embassy. My last trip was to Los Angeles and I had to fly back to Toronto and then back to Munich last year in winter. There was some kind of cyclone or a snowstorm hitting the East Coast, so basically Toronto, New York, and I had to fly back to Toronto and from Toronto to Munich. I was so nervous that my flight would be cancelled. My flight from Toronto to Munich was delayed by 5 hours. So yeah, if you have an opportunity not to buy a ticket, just don't do it. So that's basically it. I hope it was not boring. Thank you for sticking till the end. I hope it was helpful, maybe insightful. See you until next video.